Would you like to work closer to home, save money on gas, and be rewarded for your hard work and attendance? Then Bellisio Foods is looking for you. That's right, Bellisio Foods is now hiring for multiple positions and shifts with great employee benefits, an on-site health clinic, competitive wages, and advancement opportunities. Bellisio Foods is a company that truly values their employees. Apply online at bellisiofoods.com/careers.
There we are. Are we working? Okay, so we don't have a logo this morning. Not sure why, but that's okay because we have some special guests here in the studio, and we are going to talk about those famous four-legged friends we have running around the countryside this time of the year. That would be our deer friends.
Yeah.
How are y'all?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, of course. So could you tell everybody who you are?
Yes, happy to. My name is Mike Tonkovich. I'm with the Division of Wildlife, work out of the headquarters in Athens. Have been there for about 30 years. So nearing the finish line, hopefully.
Okay. And so here's the thing on in this studio, we only say a few years. We never get past a few years.
Okay.
That way none of us get old.
Okay, perfect. That's fine with me. I'm
So it could have been, 50 years ago, but it was a few years ago.
Just a few.
Just to let you know.
Happy to do that. Yes. Yep, happy to do that.
Yes.
So as I mentioned, it's nice to be back in the studio. I haven't done this in forever. I mean, I've done plenty of radio interviews, but it's been a long time since I actually sat down at a mic. It's usually over the phone with technology these days. So
Yeah.
It's great to be here.
Well, here you are, and you get to do this lovely morning show, Main Street TV show. So who's our other guest over there?
Tad from Athens back. Yep.
Tad from Athens.
Yep, I'm back. Yeah, we reached out to the ODNR about a month ago, and we're having this big rack contest, and we really wanted to make sure the ODNR was a part of it. When we're working with our hunters out there on controlling deer population, of course, our ODNR does a great job of providing assistance and making sure that we understand our rules and we understand the right way about doing things, and so. We wanted to make sure that we had Mike here in studio with us, both with Main Street and the radio, just to talk to our hunters a little bit about what's happening with our deer population and some of the things. He's an expert, obviously, in the field. He's been around for quite a while. We're not going to say how many years again, but
a few years.
A few years, that's right. Yes. And so it's always wonderful to have the ODNR come in and be a part of what you're doing as far as anytime you're doing any type of deer contest.
Love that. And Mike, could you tell us a little bit about your your role in the ODNR?
Yeah.
What just in general, what does the ODNR do?
Yeah, so my job, that's a great question because I think it's really important. Tad covered a lot of ground there. I want to make sure folks know that I have no law enforcement experience. I do nothing with enforcing laws.
Okay, because we have game wardens and we have all these other things, and I was wondering how they all tie in together.
Yeah, I'd actually reached out to our county wildlife officer, Ted Witham here, but
love Ted.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He just got back from leave, and so he incredibly busy, so he couldn't join us this morning. So anyway. As the deer program administrator, I have statewide responsibility for deer management. So setting the seasons, serving as the species expert, conducting surveys, those types of things. So the digest that you see every year, that's a result of us reaching out to farmers and hunters and other constituents to identify the ideal deer population. We go into our toolbox, identify regulations that will help us get population either reduced or stabilized or increased if that's the goal.
Sure.
And so that's it in a nutshell. Just more I guess Actually, most of what I do is manage hunter expectations, deal mostly with hunters, very little with deer, ironically, very little with deer. So you're thinking, what in the world did we get here this morning? I
Right.
thought we had an
No, not
expert.
at all.
Yeah, so
No,
no
that's-
expert, no expert, just lots of times. I'm sure there's lots of time around deer and deer hunters, but quite the different, the job is much different than what I expected when I started a few years ago.
See, I've got him
Learner,
trained
quick
already.
learner, yes. Yeah.
No, I think that deer are one of those things that people love and hate all at the same time. And I myself am not a hunter because I'm a great big fat softie and I just can't.
Yeah.
But we all understand that if there aren't people out hunting, then we have a serious problem.
Yes.
So how on earth do you and this is what we were talking about the other day, Tad, when we kicked off this big rack competition. How do you know how many deer should be out there? How do you know how many deer there are? I mean, do they call you and be like, "Hey, I'm, me and my fam's over, there's 20 of us over here."
Yeah.
Like
Yearly census. Yeah.
yeah, how do you yeah, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not mailing anything in. So
Right.
how do you kind of know what to do with the deer population?
That's a great question. I was just telling someone the other day on a call that that there are actually folks, in no disrespect whatsoever, but there are actually folks that think that do not realize the DNR actually does something with deer. They thought, many people think that the deer just do their thing, right? And somehow the population manages itself and so on and so forth. So
Yeah. No.
it really doesn't happen that way. So real quickly, how do we identify the number of deer that we want in a particular county? So there's two primary constituent groups that we seek the opinion of every 3 to 5 years. We're going to reach out to you. You'll be the farmers. You'll represent the farmers. You'll represent the hunters. So the last time we did this was actually about a year ago, a little over a year ago. We had 2 research firms that conducted the survey for us. They got received surveys back from nearly 6,500 hunters across the state, roughly 3,000. I call them production landowners, but farmers.
Okay.
Key question on the survey was simply too many deer, too few deer, just about the. I mean, it's highly scientific, right? But we compare your opinion.
It's like mama bear and baby bear.
That's right. We're looking for just the right size deer
Yeah.
population. So too few, too many, just about the right number of deer. Where you farm, and you tell us the same thing where you hunt. So we look at those differences. Let's just take Jackson County, for instance. I'm making stuff up, but we may find that 60% of our farmers say there are too many deer where I'm
They're
farming.
killing our crops.
Right, they can't grow anything,
Okay.
right? We may find that 20% of our hunters say there's too few deer. Okay, so those numbers, that disparity right there, 60% saying too many,
Yeah.
20% saying too few, says, hey, if we manage for a few less deer and we come back in a few years, you're going to probably say, hey, we may get to only 30% of our farmers say there's too many deer, and maybe 30% of our hunters say there are too few deer. So it's not, not everybody's happy, but
Can you just say you're a really bad hunter then?
Yeah.
Then you must suck because everybody else thinks that it's fine. No, I'm just kidding.
So that's how the regulations are set. We simply compare notes between those two key constituencies.
That makes
and
total
then
sense.
As far as knowing how many deer we have out there, we really don't.
Deer survey. Everybody raise your left hoof.
Yeah, right. Truth be told, we do not. But we don't have to count deer because since deer hunting returned to the state in 1943, you've only been able to kill a single buck. Okay, so we can use indices, those things that track changes in the population, like number of deer car crashes, number of bucks harvested, right? As those things go up and down, something's going on with the deer population. So we don't need to know. We can simply say there are 10% more. We speculate that the population is 10% larger over here this year than it was last because the harvest is up, the deer car crashes are up, bow hunters are seeing more deer, those kinds of things. So indirect measures of population size.
I was going to ask you, and you just mentioned it, are car deer incidents measured? I assume that they are. And I know that you all get annoyed when you go out there and you're hunting or you hit a deer with a car or whatever, and it all has to be reported. But that's why, I assume, right?
So that's a great question. Up until about 2007, we used to get Department of Public Safety is the agency that's responsible for compiling, of course, State Highway Patrol. You hit a deer, whether it's you may contact the sheriff, State Highway Patrol, local law enforcement. Traffic crash report was completed. It would go to the Department of Public Safety. We'd get those records, and we could compare that with our buck harvest. And forever, those trends, deer killed on the road and deer killed in the woods, were very, very closely linked.
Okay.
But beginning in about 2007, 2008, we started noticing that every index that we had was going up except deer car crashes. So I reached out to the Department of Public Safety, and there was a dramatic shift on a couple fronts. Number one, insurance companies no longer required traffic crash reports. So if you didn't need a report and the car was still drivable and no one was injured,
you just go.
You just went on.
Okay.
If you needed a report for your company, for your insurance claim, then you would have to go to this. You would actually have to go to the State Highway Patrol post. So deer car crashes became a lower priority, and insurance companies did not require them. So all of a sudden, no more. We're seeing about 20,000 deer car crashes a year in Ohio, but the deer population, every other index that we have, is going through is going up.
Okay.
Right? So we do not use those anymore as
gotcha.
a way to track deer population changes.
So and this might not even be your department. So as you're driving down the road and you hit a deer, you don't have to call anyone anymore.
You do not. If your insurance company does not require that, and there was no injury, and so now we're getting into areas that I'm not sure.
And I didn't want to put you on the spot.
No, I think now there is one element that's probably worth mentioning. That is you hit a deer, for instance, and you can determine that it's not badly injured, or it's dead, right? Or an officer comes out and has to euthanize it. If you want the deer to take home, either for yourself or someone else's use, you do need to get a carcass receipt for that. You don't want to throw it in the back of your truck without that carcass receipt. They'll simply issue you a hand receipt so that you're fine possessing that deer. But by and large, yes, as long as there's no injury, I think that there may be some state requirements that if the accident damage is in excess of this dollar amount, then it needs to be reported. But if you hit a deer, like literally this morning, I'm leaving the office and my colleague comes in and says, "You need to do something about the deer." He hit a deer on his way to work in one of our state trucks. So anyway, I don't know what he ended up doing. I felt like I feel there's probably some pretty strict rules in terms of us reporting those accidents. Sure. But anyway.
And I know, and you just mentioned it, and then we'll talk about the big rack competition. But I know when Ted was here, we were talking about deer in particular, and so you're driving down the road, you hit a deer, you cannot euthanize the deer, right? Like
I believe that's the case. Yes.
Yeah, and
that's unfortunate.
Me being the very softy person, obviously the best thing for it would be but you just need to call somebody.
Yeah, and they're usually pretty quick about getting out. They're pretty quick about getting out.
It's just I don't know. It's
a reality of having a lot of deer. Unfortunately, this time of year, of course, we're moving into deer car crash season. October, November, December are going to be. It will be very wise of you to drive carefully, very careful, be
very
extra
carefully,
vigilant
like
during,
this.
White knuckle affair, depending on the time
is.
of the day, especially after time change, because we've got commuters that are driving at
dusk,
peak car crash time.
Yep, and in case you haven't noticed, they do tend to come out at dusk and dawn.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I live out, and we have so many deer at our house, and this year and last year they decided to eat all of my hostas, which in 20 years they've never done. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that.
That's actually really interesting, because we see the same thing. I live in Athens County. We have 17 acres, and for years they wouldn't touch anything around our house, and then bam, one year. So it could be a variety of things, whether acorn availability.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing in the woods as I'm going out hunting is the acorn. They're just not there as much.
Okay.
I'm sure that has to do with the severe drought that we went through.
Sure, absolutely.
And so, these deer are going to survive some way, and they're going to find food sources wherever they can find them. And if that's your garden, it's unfortunate.
Hostas must be delicious.
They are.
I've never tried one, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at it, if you need it, cool. Eat it. I don't care. whatever. Okay, well, let's talk for a minute about this big rack competition. We kind of introduced it here on the air the other
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
And Tad, so kind of fill everybody in if they weren't listening
Yeah,
the other
as
day.
we were talking about the other day, this starts on November 1st, so that'd be this Friday. We didn't want to have to go the whole gamut of the entire archery season because it goes from like
It's
October
forever.
or late September all the way to February.
Yeah,
or something
late September to
along
February.
Yeah.
You got it.
So, that's covering, radio's attention span's only so long, right? But, again, Porterhouse and Jace and I and the crew there, they had this idea, let's get back to kind of celebrating the American deer hunter.
Sure.
And really appreciating what they do and how they contribute to our economy and things along those lines. So, again, hunters out there, if you harvest a deer between November 1st to December 8th, which is the last day of the regular gun season, they can submit their photos to purerockbigrack@gmail.com and have a chance to win some good prizes, some neat prizes. We have a number of sponsors. We'll be announcing that all probably in the next day or two. As far as the sponsorship is concerned, we're finishing that up. And and another thing is and I know this is an organization that the ODNR has worked with as well. We have the Buckeye Hero Hunt organization that is going to also be a part of this. And when we have our banquet on December 14th, our kind of awards or prize banquet on December 14th, there will be a fundraiser aspect to that to help the Buckeye Hero Hunt group, who is a great organization who helps veterans who are disabled and just from the state of Ohio. And they typically will take them on hunting experiences in Zaleski State Forest. I know you've worked a little bit with them, Mike. So it's really an honor to have that opportunity to try to help that group who 100% of the proceeds that they get goes to those hunting experiences for those veterans. So it's really just going to be a fun opportunity for hunters to really celebrate what they do and how they contribute to our communities, and also give back a little bit to our community as well.
And I think that this is so tastefully done. I know there's a fine line here. I just have this issue, and I told you all the other day of guys girls strapping the dead deer to the top of their hood of their car and honking the horn and driving around town, and the poor thing's hanging there. And to me, that's kind of not responsible hunting.
Right.
I think that the deer should be owed respect.
I agree 100%.
And that's what we were talking about the other day when we were here. So I think by doing this contest, you all are doing it very tastefully and by pictures and not physically having to bring the deer here and all of that stuff.
And it's basically just a popularity contest, through social media.
Sure.
And so when they submit these photos, obviously we're going to pick maybe a top 5, top 10 or whatever. And we'll be sharing those on social media, and the voting public out there can say, hey, we think that's the biggest, or we think that's the prettiest, or we think that's the best harvest from the youth season, so on and so
the
forth.
The biggest rack.
Yeah, that's right. and then we of course have our stories too, and we're really looking forward to hearing some of these hunting stories. And again, folks, we didn't make in the rules whether we didn't say it had to be a story from this season. It could be a story from the past. We're just really wanting to enjoy those experiences together and relive some of those experiences together using the radio, power radio, as well as Main Street TV and other media along the way.
Yeah, speaking of stories, I got to just mention, I was talking to someone on the way over. One of my favorite parts, the Buckeye Big Buck Club banquet, which is every year where they celebrate deer that qualify for the Buckeye Big Buck Club, and there's awards for the largest typical, largest non-typical by weapon type. But a decade or so ago, they started a contest for the Young Hunter Award, basically the youngest hunter.
Oh, cool!
And it's just the best part about it, of course, is their stories. I mean, their stories are just amazing, and it's just comical because you're sitting, some of the things that have been said. Everything's been legal, but the parent is sitting on the edge of their seat wondering, what's my 6-year-old?
Please,
How are they going
please
to? Are they going to
don't- yeah.
tell them about me going to the bath? Hopefully, they're not going to include everything about the hunt. So that you just
When
sit
Dad
there.
was out behind the tree, I saw.
Those are the best stories because you know it's going to be entertaining. You know, some
out
of the
of the
kids,
mouths of babes.
yeah,
dude.
yeah. Some of the kids will be there. They'll just stare in the audience and won't be able to say a word, and others are just waiting for that opportunity.
No, and I think that's good. And, you know, it's so good to teach. I'm hoping people are teaching the youth responsibly. And we
Sure.
talked about that the other day as well. What are some deer facts that we can talk about that, tell us about deer?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm just listening to what you just said here, teaching kids responsibly, and this is where my mind is at all the time.
Sure.
As the state's deer program administrator, looking at harvest data, talking about this combines managing deer populations and young hunters. But one of the things I was talking to Mike Moore. Mike Moore is the editor for the Ohio Outdoor News, which is a great, I think it's one of the few outdoor papers left in the state. They do a great job with all the outdoor stuff. But we were talking the other day, and he had asked a question that over 30 years no one has ever asked, and which is really ironic. And it's odd that I would get a question. It seems rather basic, but his question was really interesting. And I, of course, being the scientist that I get to be once in a while, I dug into the data to see what this actually looks like. But he asked Mike. He said, because our focus is on managing deer. We could shoot nearly all the bucks. It wouldn't make a bit of difference in terms of population control. It's the antlerless deer. In my mind, that's what we really, if we're going to talk about managing deer, we have to talk about how many does we're going to kill, because we're not going to manage the population by harvesting bucks, right? Okay. Because of their mating.
They're just going to do, what little's left are going to do their thing.
Yes, right. So at any rate, I said, he said, what age group are killing, what age group are killing more antlerless deer? Now, when I say antlerless, to be clear, antlerless deer are not just does. Antlerless includes button bucks. So they don't have antlers yet. So we just
the little guys.
Yeah, the little buttons, right? Okay. So we just lump them in. About for every 100 antlerless deer, about 20 of those are going to be button bucks. Okay. So most of the antlerless deer are female deer. That's how we manage our population. So anyway, he got to looking at the data. He asked, "Are kids shooting more antlerless deer?" And I was very surprised by what I saw, because it turns out I would have thought, again, this is partly my bias as a hunter myself.
Yeah.
Growing up, I was happy to shoot the first deer, any deer. It didn't matter how big, how small, how old, what sex it was. I was happy to shoot a deer. Right. Interestingly enough, when we,
you weren't picky or choosy.
I was not picky. There was because there were so few deer. You didn't have that luxury of being picky, right? I mean, you saw a deer track, you were happy, right? You passed a deer, you're going to regret that for the rest of the season, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's just
it's brown, it's down.
It's brown, it's down.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah, brown, it's down. So anyway, fast forward 50 years and where we are today, looking at the season. We have let's just call it a 20-week season, end of September to the first part of February, looking at those seasons by week. And we have two age groups. You're going to be 12 and under, and you're going to be 13 and up. So not necessarily.
Thank you for making me.
Yeah, not necessarily adults, but we're gonna call you 12 and under, and these are the 13-year-olds. Okay.
I could be young.
Comparing the antlerless, the portion of their harvest that, let's just say, female deer, antlerless deer. Okay. I was really a little bit disappointed to see that every week of the season, all 20 weeks of the season, with 1 week as an exception, our young hunters, your group, was killing more bucks as a proportion of their harvest than your group.
I would have never thought that.
Never. You and I are probably similar in age. Interesting enough, when we asked, because when I saw that, I sent it out to a bunch of our staff, and I said,
"Interesting
thoughts." And I didn't tell them. I looked at there were two lines on a graph, and I said, "Tell me which one are the kids, and tell me which one are the adults." The point is that kids can do that today because there are so many opportunities. Last year, we had a hunter success rate we've never seen before. 45% of our hunters were successful.
Okay.
Okay, so that means more or less every other year you're going to kill a deer in the state of Ohio at that success rate.
Wow.
So kids have a lot of opportunity. The downside of this, I hate to be the Debbie Downer here, but if you're cutting your teeth on bucks and nice bucks, you're not going to 15, 20 years. You're just not
You're
going
going to go downhill from
you're
here.
not going to be shooting antlerless deer, right? I mean, because talk to colleagues, friends of mine, Preble County wildlife officer. I love telling this story. His son killed his 8-year-old son, and 9 years old, I forget what it was. He killed a 135-inch buck, and he wanted to get it mounted. You got $500? No, I don't have $500. Well, son, we're gonna have to wait until you get a little bit bigger buck. Okay, well then I'm passing on everything until I get a buck that qualifies for the Buckeye Big Buck Club. So point is that I'd like to see our young children focus a little bit more on shooting any deer. And the first deer you see, which the start of the season, when you go out tomorrow to hunt, if you saw 5 deer, only one of those is going to be an antlered buck. We're doing some rounding here. Okay. So you see 20, you're going to have 4 of those are going to be antlers. So the point is that the vast majority of deer out there are going to be antlerless deer, which means you have to pass up a bunch of deer to get an antlered buck.
Sure.
Like to see a little more emphasis on antlerless deer. That's taking the first deer.
That's partly, if you look at that category, it's best harvest taken during youth season. It's not best buck or biggest buck. It's just best harvest. Well, so that could be a field dressed 120-pound doe. It's a nice
a
doe.
Beautiful doe. Yeah. So and I think we talked about this the other day too. Is hunting responsibly, and this is Jen talking, not you all talking, but it isn't about a trophy that you hang on the wall. And I hope that, I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, is that we need to teach these kids that, you're harvesting these deer for food or with respect. And I understand if you find a big buck and you want to hang it on your wall, cool. But that's not the goal.
Right. For me, it was time with my grandfather. It didn't matter if
I hear that a lot.
If we ever saw a deer. I could care less if I saw a deer.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm not diminishing the hunts that these young children and their fathers and aunts and uncles and family members are taking them on. I'm just saying, I'm looking to. Unfortunately, I have to look towards the future. The future is if we continue to focus on antlers instead of antlerless deer, your quality is going to suffer. One of the things that you asked me about. One of the things that I do is I track. We can look at a buck's first set of antlers and measure those over time, just the beams. Okay, 1.5-year-old buck. Okay, this would be a deer that was born the spring of 23. This fall, he's what we call a yearling buck. If we look at the diameter of those antlers, 1 inch above the
like as it's coming out,
right, here, 1 inch above there. Just measure those. Over time, that tells us what's going on with the deer herd condition. And in Southeast Ohio, Jackson County in particular, since I started, we were seeing a downward trend in those beam diameters. They're getting smaller and they're getting smaller.
Why?
So, larger deer population, lower quality food. So our forest,
which goes back to your
so a combination
big rack
of a lot of deer and a food source, right? So our forests are maturing. Those provide less food than what a early successional old field habitat would provide. So anyway, just providing some, not to be the guy that brings the rain to the parade, but just folks need to know, again, looking forward, there's never been a better time to hunt deer in the state of Ohio ever.
Sure.
We're gonna break a harvest record this year with our harvest. Hunters are successful. They're enjoying their time in the field, and that's great. Just looking with an eye to the future. That's all I'm talking about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't even a now thing. That's your job, is to think, maybe even 5 years down the road where we're going to be.
Yes, that's right. Looking forward. Yeah.
And again, doing all this stuff responsibly. So, what are some of the things that folks out there might not know? I would like to think if you're a hunter, you know the rules and that you participate in the rules. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the things that you all see maybe that people may not know about, or that they're doing that's irresponsible or responsible?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think that this is a great opportunity to a public service announcement, if you will, to remind hunters, because there was a pretty significant change in regulations this year, and again, what we see with regulation changes. Oftentimes is that folks, it takes uptake is sometimes slower than what we'd expect. In other words, we may change a regulation this year. You're not breaking the law. You just didn't know that you could have used this permit and saved yourself some money, for instance. Uh-huh. So one of the things that hunters need to know this year, this will be the first time ever, and we introduced this reduced cost permit back in 2007, but it's always only been valid the first 8 weeks of the season. This year, hunters can use the $15, what we call the deer management permit, all the way through the second gun season. So they can use it during. Last year, you couldn't use it during the firearm season. This year, you can use it not only during the 7-day firearm season, but also the 2-day bonus gun season in December.
Sure.
That's good for an antlerless deer. So back to, here's an incentive, right? We're going to give you more time, and you don't want to get me started on that conversation. But we're going to
Sure we do.
No,
we love to
don't.
stir up
You're going to
stuff
have to
here.
order lunch if we do that.
Hey, that's okay.
So anyway. Want hunters to know to take advantage of that opportunity that they, and this also applies to non-residents. We have a lot of non-residents come to our state as well. So folks need to know.
Well, that's a good point. Can you hunt from out of state?
Oh yeah. And non-residents are eligible. I was on a podcast about 2 months ago, 2 guys from Western Pennsylvania that both own property in Ohio. They have to come here and hunt as non-residents. However, during the podcast, I told them, I was casually talking about the use of this $15 permit and that it was valid statewide, and residents and non-residents, and their faces went white. They have been spending $80 to kill a doe when they could have been spending $15. So needless to say, the tone of the interview kind of went south when they learned that. So that's a fun fact. And I think it's always good. We recognize that reading the digest from cover to cover is not fun. So what we do each year is we put the changes that we've made in red on the front, just inside the cover. So take a quick glance at that and make sure you're up to par on the regulation changes, because we try to limit the number of changes. There aren't a lot of things that change from year to year. Typically, it's a bag limit, but there were no changes. There were a handful of changes last year, and that's something that most hunters don't have to worry about, because the average hunter in the state of Ohio kills how many deer, do you think? Successful hunter. What's the average successful hunter in Ohio kill each year?
Each year?
Yeah.
Well, you said 45% get a deer.
How many deer do they put in their freezer each year?
I don't know. 1?
1.3.
Okay.
So when you have a bag limit of 3 or 4, you don't necessarily have to worry about the bag limit changes, because you're not going to kill that.
Because you're not going to get.
But that's important to make sure if you're going to a new county or doing something different. Always want to make sure you're aware of that.
Are deer native to our area?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They were extirpated, eliminated from the state at just shortly after the turn of the century, like 1904, and there was a block of years until about 1917, 18, somewhere in the early 1920s that they finally started showing back up in the state. Okay. But yeah, they're a native species to Ohio.
Okay. And what was the other?
Yeah, it's been because of ODNR and the rules and regulations that we've had a successful growth in our deer population throughout the state. And so, their fine work year in and year out. There's always debate and argument of we should have more TAF, fewer TAF, whatever. But, these are the people who are constantly talking to our farmers and our hunters, and they're out there in the field and they're experiencing it, and they're using the data. They're using the data to make these decisions, and they're making good decisions year in and year out to help with this population.
And again, it's for the betterment of everyone. It's for the betterment of humankind and the deer and our cars and and our crops and every other thing.
Human health. I mean, we've got Lyme disease. Talking to some folks yesterday, alpha-gal, which is the meat allergy, is on the rise here in Southeast Ohio. We've got 5 species of ticks in Ohio now. Yeah. All of them are very friendly with deer, and so we've got, and the other thing that we haven't really touched on, you've kind of hinted at it, you've danced around, is this idea that deer not only impact crops and human health and deer car crashes, but they also impact the forests and the fields that they live in and the species that they coexist with. And when deer become super abundant in areas, they can have devastating impacts on ecosystems. We can lose species. They create opportunities for invasive species, honeysuckle, and these other species to come in. So this balance is really important, and we sometimes lose sight of that because of the great deer that we have in the state of Ohio. You see these large antlered bucks and you think everything's fine. Well, no, not really.
No, he's just really smart.
We got to peel back the layers of the onion and look a little closer sometimes.
Sure. So county-wide, we have 88 counties in Ohio. Mm-hmm. It used to be that, there were many, many folks that came to our area to hunt. Maybe they still are. but are there more deer elsewhere now in
Absolutely.
the state than there used to be? I mean,
Absolutely.
you go in town now and you see 10 deer
Yeah.
in my parents' front yard and
Yeah.
they're live in the middle of town,
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's like
You're
it's not
seeing
necessarily
more and more of these towns having controlled hunts.
Okay.
Because you're
City
right.
of Athens this year.
City of Athens for
Yeah.
the first time I saw
Really?
they're having a controlled hunt program. Yeah.
On limited properties. But yeah, that's a great question. So when I started in 95,
A few years ago.
a few years ago, whoa,
Yes.
yeah, a few years ago, it was Sunday before deer season was just amazing. If you were traveling on 77 out of Northeast Ohio to Southeast
Sure.
Ohio, just a steady stream of cars
Oh,
heading to
yeah.
Southeast Ohio. Today, you don't see that anymore because for several reasons. The deer camp days are gone, unfortunately. But there are deer hunting opportunities everywhere in the state now. I mean, we have lots of opportunities in Northeast Ohio, Cuyahoga. I mean, every county in the state is harvesting deer, obviously. But
Sure.
but that was, those days have changed. People traveling to Southeast Ohio to kill deer are now behind us. There's still a few folks, but you have
yeah.
opportunities closer to home.
Well, there's a lot of folks that have camps here. I have a restaurant in town, so I know that, or own the brewery in town, so we have a restaurant too. But I know people I get to speak with them, and they
Yeah,
travel
yeah.
from all over to come here, and so that there are still people traveling, but there are many folks that come from elsewhere that just have a little camp here, or a land, or a cabin, or something.
Buy property for
Sure.
hunting purposes.
Absolutely. And Cheryl's given me the old.
Oh, the old timeout.
clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I need you to explain something to me, though, before I let you go.
Okay.
Several years ago, I believe it was around Apple Festival time, which would be like the end of September.
Okay.
My husband and I, we also have 17 acres.
Okay.
So we're out in our backyard. It was a really early one Sunday morning. And we look out, and I am not joking, and I have a picture of it somewhere, but I couldn't find it right now. There were 10 bucks in our backyard together, all different sizes.
Yep.
Why?
That's the nature of the beast. They, outside of the breeding season, whitetail deer could be, male and females could be two separate species, literally, because they eat similar foods, but they spend time. The bucks will, once breeding season is over, the males will get back together. They'll spend the entire rest of the year until we get back to breeding season again.
Okay.
Occupy different habitats, right? And the does and her
And the
related
babies.
siblings and sister-in-laws and whatnot.
I'm going to tell you, and you can tell. There's Aunt
Oh, yeah,
Jenny,
absolutely.
and you can
Absolutely.
tell. You can see.
So there's a matriarchal doe who has several generations
And
of her
sisters
offspring.
and
Yes,
aunts
absolutely.
and you can totally tell.
So they're outside of the breeding season. They really are separate species occupying
Really?
different habitats. But the bucks will stay in bachelor groups the entire year, which actually,
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
yeah,
And they were all shapes and sizes.
it wouldn't be much longer. You start getting into late October, and then they're going to start sparring, and the yearling bucks may disperse. And
They're like, I ain't messing with
Yeah.
Grandpa over
Yeah,
there.
yeah. They'll disperse and set up a home range somewhere else. So
Okay, well that answers my question. I've
Yeah,
never had
totally
anyone
normal.
tell me that, and it was honestly like glorious to
Yeah.
see it out there because I just never had seen that many bucks in one
Yeah.
at one time before. So, well, this has been so fun. So, Tad, if you would kind of go over this big rack contest one more time.
Well, like I said, it starts on Friday. If you harvest a deer between November 1st to December 8th, we want to see it. We want to see the picture. Big or small, we like them all, right? All the rest. We want
All
to
of
see the
them.
doe. We want to see them all, right? And we can, it's just a way for us to really interact with our hunters, share some stories, and also in the end, give away some great prizes and raise some money for a great cause as well. So you can check out the Pure Rock Big Rack Contest Facebook page. The other Pure Rock pages will be sharing some information as well for all the rules and prizes and things along those lines. And of course, we'll be announcing some of the prizes throughout the month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we hope the best for all of this because I just love how y'all are doing the contest. I think it's
Thank
awesome. People are out hunting anyway, and it'll be just a great fellowship. and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you know, a lot of harassing along the way
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
My rack's bigger than yours. And,
That's
you know, all that.
That's right.
So, but is there anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I just hope everybody has a safe season. Watch those, getting in and out of tree stands, and
I have a
know
friend.
your target.
I have a
Just be
friend
careful.
who about did himself in from a faulty tree stand, and that's a whole other story. But yes, please be
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
careful.
We've had really safe seasons. Super excited about that. We typically will have a couple incidents a year. Sometimes people, not being in the best shape, and find that out the hard way.
Yeah.
Dragging a deer out of the woods. So just let's have a great deer season this year and be careful.
Yep. Be smart about it. Use your noggin up there,
Yeah.
please. All right. Well, we will let you get out of here. Okay, Adrian, do we have a commercial to play? All right, and then we'll be back on the other side of it, hopefully with Pete Wilson
Thank you,
or
Beth.
somebody. Thank you.
At Vinton County National Bank, we believe in supporting the areas where we live and work. Now, we'd like to honor those who also serve our communities. Our new Community Champions account is especially for first responders, veterans, active military, and anyone employed in the fields of healthcare or education. This account offers rewards, discounts, and other benefits to those who give so much to others. Vinton County National Bank, rewarding those who serve.
All right, and we are back, and our sweet Cheryl is here. We're waiting on Pete to come in. So, Cheryl, so let's talk about deer and things, because did you have deer in California?
Yeah, we have a house in Central California, and so we have deer there. Our Southern California house, not so much, because the houses are a lot closer together.
Okay.
Up in the mountains, which is not very far from us.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
There are deer. Okay.
Yes.
So you're not in complete culture shock by
Oh, God.
moving here and
Oh, gosh,
seeing
no.
deer.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
No. But because we're bordered by the Lake Catherine Nature Preserve,
Yes.
at the house here we have a lot.
Bazillions
We
of
have
them.
a lot of deer, which is driving the dogs insane.
Oh, I know. So funny story. You got to meet Olive the other day,
Yes.
the corgi. And so we're out, Jamie and I are outside the other day, and we were meeting a guy that's doing some work at the house, and she was like looking, and here comes this ginormous deer out of the woods, and God bless her heart. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. She thought she was going to catch it. And the deer is just nonchalantly galloping, couldn't care less at this little corgi with her. And she's fast, but there was not even a chance in Hades that she was going to catch that deer. And I'm just like, sweetie, you're making a fool of yourself. Just stop. But corgis are herding dogs by nature, so she had to do it. But
Yeah.
finally, she gave up and was like, okay, Mom, I'm coming back.
The dogs will just randomly bark, and Eric's always like, "Why are the dogs barking?" I'm
The
like,
rando deer
and I'm like, seriously,
in the yard.
that means there's a deer in the yard. I keep telling him, you need to just set up a camera
Oh, yeah.
outside, and that way, when you have that feeling of why are the dogs barking, you can confirm the fact that I'm right. It's just a random deer
It's
in the
just
front yard.
a deer. Yep.
Just a random deer in the front
And
yard.
there are many, many of them. So, well, very good. Well, thank you, Cheryl, for
You're
stopping
welcome.
by. And she always has been finding us some really good guests. So thank you for that as well.
Trying.
We appreciate it. And
Let us know what you want to see.
yeah,
Who
please.
you want on the show. Chime in and
let us know. Yeah,
And
that's
we'll
what
work
we're
on
here
it.
for.
Yep.
And Pete will. Okay, come on over, Pete Wilson.
All
And
about Pete.
I think we're gonna look like vomit, but it's okay. Thank you, Miss Cheryl.
It's like Twins Day.
It is. I don't know if we're twinning or if we're disgusting.
Oh my gosh! You must
beside
have got
each
the-
other, but-
must have got the memo again. didn't
Yeah,
you?
something
Okay.
like that.
All right.
So what's going on, Pete?
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're going to start off by highlighting one of the top events of the year in Jackson, and that is the Jackson Area Chamber of Commerce Appreciation Banquet.
Sure.
It was held last Thursday at the Parks Edge Event Center. Overflow crowd. Chamber does a great job with that. Alex Shope covered that for the Telegram,
Mhm.
and there's so many good things that go on at that banquet.
There
that
are.
it was a huge story. It's on our front page today. with all the details of the winners. And you're talking about business achievers. You're talking about community good doers. You're talking about businesses that have been hung around for a century or more. It's very positive. Adrian's got a photo there that he's going to put up of the chamber. These are the award winners, a representative of the main award winners that were honored at the banquet. There they are. This is at the Parks Edge Event Center. And if you look from the left, I'll tell you who these people are, and then I'll tell you why they're holding a plaque. Okay, from the left, that's Deanna Maynard Goodman of Fab D Boutique, Robert Irvin, Dakota Brown, Rob Martin, and Bob Brown of Buckeye Construction and Restoration, Kim Harless, Mika Moeller of Michael's Ice Cream, Robin Eby of Buckeye Community Services. On the end is Evan Osborne of Sixth Sense Brewing and Tap Room. All right, so why are these people standing up there with the plaques? Well, you deserve to know that because you know high achievers. First of all, Buckeye Construction and Restoration won what is kind of considered the top award at the chamber. It's called Business of the Year. And all they did was Bob Brown and Rob Martin started that back in 2010, I believe, in Wellston. Started a small block building with one employee. I guess it was, I don't know whether they might not be counting themselves, but one other employee.
Sure.
Today, there are 126 employees, and they are doing business all over the place.
All over
the place. It is one of the big success stories, business success stories in Jackson County, for sure.
It is.
I know the Economic Development Partnership kind of highlighted them a couple of years ago, and they continue to grow.
It's one of those businesses that people may not know
because of the type of specialty type of work they do.
They're basically do masonry work and rehabilitation of buildings and things like that. And I guess unless you need them, you don't know.
Right, but they are just
they're amazing.
They've been very, very successful.
Yes.
The Entrepreneur of the Year, a similar success story was Deanna Goodman. And the Fab D, a lot of folks may not know about that. You know, she had her beauty salon there, and she operated there not just down the street from us here on Main Street. She sold that building and now operates out of a building on Twin Oaks Drive. But the big success of her business is her online show that she does, you know, fashion, plus size, counseling, back and forth online, interactive. And it's just huge what she's done. And you know she's around when you see that pink car.
Yes.
Right. She has definitely given new meaning to pink.
Yes.
But a lot of folks, once again, may not, if they're not interested in that sort of thing. And because it's online and national, truly national, she's traveled places to promote her show and be on other programming and at other events. But that is a Entrepreneur of the Year, certainly earned that award. She has over a number of years, and it keeps getting bigger. Bob Irvin, okay, we know him. He is, you know, he's 88 years old.
No.
Yes, he is. He is 88 years old, and he just keeps writing history.
He does.
He was the winner of the Community Pride Award. Of course, I tell you, I'll date myself. Bob Irvin was my American history teacher back in the 70s. And of course, after he retired from teaching, he did a lot of things. In addition to writing the history, which he got honored for, he was in theatrical productions. He was in a nationally circulated advertisement that was in a magazine playing the Grinch. That was something to see him dressed up like that. And of course, he has made appearances all over the place as Abraham Lincoln.
Yes, the Gettysburg Address.
Reciting the Gettysburg.
Can you still recite it? Did you have to learn it in school?
I had to learn it in school, and I did make it. I don't think I could say it now, but if somebody else started to say it, I could mouth it along with them, I'm sure.
I think I can get through about half of it probably that I remember. But
Right, but Bob, of course, continues to write history, about 6 or 7 history books now. And he is working on another one that he hopes to have out. That he hopes to have out next year. And as a person who, if my twig would have been another way, might have been a history teacher, a social studies teacher. Sure. I have a great respect for history. And I tell you what, a lot of times in locales, local history can be overlooked. It can be overlooked in the schools. It can be overlooked in the communities because a lot of people just don't know don't know it. And nobody has been a better promoter, preserver, and writer of history than Bob Irvin. And he knows how to do it the right way. A lot of it is, he's not writing it, he's not putting in what somebody else's research is. He's going to newspapers, interviews,
Sure.
Original sources to write his history. And even though there's been work done in the past over the years, Jennifer, on the writing of local history, nobody has done it to the degree and as comprehensively as what Bob Irvin's done. I mean, he is a treasure. I was so glad to see him win this award.
Absolutely.
He's done it for so long and so well after his retirement that this is the second time he's won the Community Pride Award. A new generation of chamber people have come in and they respect what he has done as well.
Absolutely.
All right, the Meritorious Service Award went to Kim Harless, and she could have won it for a lot of different things. But I
She
think
wears 50 hats.
she does. Of course, she's been a longtime member of the Jackson City Board of Education. That's a picture of her accepting the awards, saying how much she appreciated. I know it meant a lot to her. She's been active at the regional district and state levels of
Yep.
the Ohio School Boards Association as well. But she is also the senior organization director for the Farm Bureau, not only here, the Jackson-Vinton Farm Bureau based in Jackson, but adjoining counties. She's very active on that. But the thing that she won the award for, when I read the description in the program, was all the work she's done with the FFA and youth programs
Yes.
through the Farm Bureau.
You got
It
it.
really has developed those and just has a strong motor running to support young people, especially those involved in the agriculture and through the schools. Does a lot of other things too. She helps the Elks out with their Americanism and essay contest program. Does that every year. That takes time, and she a very strong member of the Jackson Rotary Club, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other things as
my
well.
gosh. Yes.
The 4-H program, she's been active in that before, and in that as well. Okay, Mika Moeller of Michael's Ice Cream. She was honored. Her business was honored, and she's the person now, the family member that kept that going.
She is.
They were honored. The business was for 115 years. I'm not sure that you could come up with a more signature business that symbolizes Jackson more than Michael's Ice Cream.
Yes.
People know it, of course, for the bubble, but there's so much more that she does at that restaurant
yes.
and store. She's very, very innovative with the things she does. They have a great and loyal clientele. People who come from back to visit, people who come to town for the first time to visit. One of the things you have to do is go get the bubble.
I'm just going to tell you, I have a place for people to eat. And when they ask me about dessert, I mean, you can get dessert here, but if you're not from here, we recommend you go to Michael's.
Right, exactly. Well,
So-
Michael's goes back to 1909. I believe her great-grandfather, I think I've got the
I think
greats
it is,
lined up.
yes.
Great-grandfather who was an immigrant, or at least a second-generation immigrant from the Middle East, started, Joe Michael, I think was his name, started that down on the corner of Portsmouth and Water. That
Yep.
building is no longer there.
Yeah.
And it stayed in the family business all the way until about 10 years ago. And at that point, both her father and stepmother died kind of suddenly,
Yep.
and it looked like that maybe the business wouldn't continue. Mika, I know, had another profession. I
Sure.
think it was nursing.
Yeah.
And she stepped away from that to keep the family business going.
Yeah.
I think it was, she felt compelled to do that
Yep.
because of the tradition, and she has just done a
So
super job
well.
at that.
So
She's
amazing.
also so active. I know it was a longevity award, but she's done so well with that business too as well. And she is also a force in the Downtown Association, one of the top organizers to
Yep.
get those events going, the First Thursday events and other things downtown. So congratulations to her. And on the Beautification Award, congratulations there
Oh, well,
to
thank
you
you.
and Jamie. And Evan, I know, represented you at the banquet, your general manager.
Yep.
But what you have done, with that building that used to be the commissioners, the elections board, the YMCA, and automobile garage, and you turned it into something else tremendous. Everybody,
Thank you.
before they even taste that great food that you serve there, they talk about the atmosphere. And
Oh,
that
thank you.
that means so much. You come in and it already tastes good before you even get it. So
hope
the
so.
chamber recognized that, and they also recognized another beautification award went to Buckeye Community Services.
Yep.
And of course, they have an office that is located out there on Morton Street, but they were honored specifically for the new group home they
Yep.
built on Pearl Street, which opened very quietly. Randy Evans Construction did the work on that, and it replaced a house. Basically, it was a 3-story house that was on South Street there across from Cardo's.
Yes.
And of course, not handicapped accessibility, and
No.
this was better for the ladies. I think
For
there
the
were 8
residents.
ladies at the time of the transition there, and
For sure.
Bryant Wolford owned that lot there, and he was very selective in who he was going to sell it to, but he thought that would be a good community service for that group home to be built there.
So it's interesting. I was just thinking as you were talking about that lot is where my Uncle Lewis had his insurance agency.
It is.
Isn't it?
It certainly is.
Lewis Long Insurance.
Lewis Long, and I think you went up the stairs?
Yeah, and then
or there was 2 levels,
I think
maybe.
then it was kind of like a boarding house kind of situation too. But yeah, I don't know why it just came to my mind.
I remember
And then
that.
it burned. I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to it, but
There was a
it's not there
fire.
anymore. But
Yeah.
I do remember it. I
Yeah.
do remember the winding steps go to the upper level there.
Everybody loved Uncle Lewis. He's everybody's Uncle Lewis.
That's exactly right. But that chamber article is pretty detailed. Alex Shope, our editorial assistant, did a great job on it. And I tell you what, I want you to read the paper and buy it, but it has all the details in there of why these people won and some pictures and like that. And it is a good read, and you really need to respect and honor those people because they were all very deserving, those recipients.
Yeah. Well,
Because chamber could pick anybody. There's lots of possible people and businesses to select, but this is what they came up with, and it was a good group of winners. All right, the Village of Zaleski, remember they have that Appalachian Community Grant to maybe develop, the goal is to
Yes.
develop some tourism up there because
Yeah.
they're so close to Moonville, the Moonville Tunnel. And this grant that they have is, I guess the skinny on it is, it's going to be able to make connections between the village and the Moonville Tunnel.
okay.
With connecting the trail to Moonville with where the
Awesome.
village park is there. Well, they're going to have, they're figuring out how to use all that money they got to do this. And the engineers of the project are going to have their second public meeting. It's going to be tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at the Zaleski Volunteer Fire Department. They invite the public to come because they want to hear what the public thinks on how to do this. They got the money and they want public input on. So this is your chance. It isn't a closed door where a few people make the decisions. They want the public's input on how to use this money to improve Zaleski and maybe bring some more business to Zaleski
Love
because
that.
they are very close to some tourism there.
Absolutely.
All right. So what else can we tell you? The Oak Hill Public Library is having a harvest party and a haunted library tour tonight.
Oh,
And
fun.
It's for the very young. It's modeled for children ages 8 and older. It will be at 6 p.m. It is totally free. Registration is not required. You can just show up. Everybody is invited to dress up in their favorite scary costume. So a day
Ooh.
before Halloween and trick or treat, the Oak Hill Public Library is having a harvest party and haunted library tour, and all the kids ages 8 and up are invited. Speaking of Oak Hill, I want to give you 24-hour plus notice that they are going to have their Halloween shindig. This is at least the second or maybe third year they've done it, but
Okay.
it's coordinated with Trick or Treat, which is tomorrow night.
Yep.
But it starts at 5:15 with something that I'll date myself again. The Oak Hill Lions Club used to do this a long time ago. It's called the Parade of Masks, but it's where the kids gather. Doesn't necessarily be on Trick or Treat. It
fun.
is now, but they gather in the costumes, just like they did at Wellston and Jackson for the Trunk or Treat and
Yep.
the costume contest. And they have the Parade of Masks. They walk around and everybody can see everybody's contest. There will be prizes offered for the top adults and children's costumes. It is free to enter. That is at 5:15 p.m. It's going to be at the Oak Hill City Building on 415 Front Street there by
Nice.
the Acorn Shopping Plaza. From 5:15 to 7, as part of the shindig, the Festival of Flags will have a veal fry fundraiser.
Okay.
Because they see some possibilities here. A lot of people should be there, so it's a chance to maybe sell some veals. You can have your supper there. Proceeds from the sale will go towards passes for Oak Hill Elementary students for next year's Festival of Flags.
Yep.
If you want to be part of the trunk or treat, which is part of the whole deal, you can set up from 5 to 5:20 p.m. and you can start distributing candy by 5:30 p.m. down there. Trick or treat then in the village, that's village-wide, is 5:30 to 7 p.m. And that leads me right into the segue. Trick or treat in the other Jackson County communities,
That's
same
right.
time, 5:30 to 7 p.m. in Jackson, Wellston, Colton, and Oak Hill. Oh, what was it? About 10 years ago, the mayors got together and
They
said,
did.
let's coordinate this thing.
Very smart.
So we don't have a network of trick-or-treaters running from town to town.
Yeah.
Now, there was some rumors going around. I've heard it 2 or 3 times. They were going to maybe change it because they were worried about rain on Thursday. That has not happened, folks. Trick or treat is tomorrow, come rain or shine.
That's right.
I don't know did we have the weather up there?
No, but we can. Let's see what it says.
It's not fully updated, but it still is this week.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah.
it is showing a 10%.
Little bit.
Now, I know there's rain coming out of that cloud, but look at the number, 10%.
Yeah.
So we're not going to worry about 10%, are we?
No. It won't rain on our parade.
And I will tell you what, considering the numbers of trunk-or-treaters that came out in Jackson and Wellston, do you think that's going to deter them?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Okay, and of course, a big excitement thing is the Ironman's playoff game Friday night.
Yep.
Waylon Massey, the very able athletic director and amiable athletic director at Jackson High School, has released some information. I know a lot of Ironman fans will want to know this.
Okay.
We do have this information posted on Facebook and on the website. The game, of course, is Friday at Alumni Stadium against the New Philadelphia Quakers. All right. So 7 p.m. The gates will open at 5:30 p.m. The kickoff is at 7. Tickets are priced at $11 for adults. The state jacked the prices up for adults. However, because of state legislation, some of the state legislators didn't like that the students got charged the same thing. The student price is only $5.
Okay.
Um,
That's cool.
Okay, you cannot get them, though, before the game unless you get them online. You can use a credit or debit card to get them. So
Tickets have to be
if-
purchased online.
only if you get them in advance.
Okay.
That was another part. The state legislators didn't like that was the only way to get it. So that rule's changed. And you know what? I think it's a good one.
Yeah.
You can
there's
get
people
tickets.
that can't get that can't do that.
No, and you can get tickets at the gate.
Okay.
You know. And so
Smart.
now at the gate though, it's cash only, which is normally the way it would. Normally you don't walk up there with a check or credit or debit
Right.
card. So don't be confused. If you go online, you can do it right now on the school's website, the Jackson City Schools website, and you can get tickets online through the OHSAA. $11 adults, $5 for students. Has to be cash, a credit card or debit card. If you go at the gate, it is cash only. And the
Okay.
prices are the same, by the way, $11 and $5. They don't go up just because it's the same day. Now, also important, even though the game's at Jackson, no Jackson passes can be honored because this is a state deal. This is not a Jackson deal. Jackson students also cannot be admitted free as they normally are during the regular season.
Okay.
If something happens there, it's going to be some sponsorship. It did
Sure.
happen last year. I won't know that it'll happen this year. I
Okay.
haven't heard. But anyway, also reserve seats. A lot of people have reserve seats at Alumni. That's not in effect either. So if you have a reserve seat in a premium
Yep.
location,
Forget about
it's
it.
first come, first serve.
Yep.
So some fanny may be in that seat that you paid for all year. That's just the way it is. We're giving you
Get there
advance warning.
earlier. I don't know what to tell you.
All right. So we have run out of time, but we will be back tomorrow. And speaking of the game, we've got a lot of preview articles on our sports page
Okay.
about New Philadelphia, about the game, how the Ironmen got there, and a game article about their victory over Chillicothe and what that meant to the program. Remember, history made 4 straight undisputed crowns. Never happened in Jackson High
Pretty
School
cool
history.
stuff.
So we got a lot of sports in there too. We got all the pictures from the costume contest and the Halloween contest in Wellston, the trunk or treat that they had there. So we all that in there as well. On Friday, Jennifer, Dan, and Pete are going to be here with you
Yes.
to talk about the Jackson New Philadelphia game. So we're doing our homework on that.
I talked to one of the Dans yesterday, and he mentioned that. So
Okay.
very exciting.
Okay, so you'll have to have wear red.
Oh,
If the memo's out.
What color is New Philadelphia?
I don't even know.
Oh man, pressure's on.
I do not even know, but do not wear those collars.
Okay.
I'll find out for you and tell you tomorrow. All right.
We'll do it.
That would be a major faux pas.
Oh no, it'd be bad. So, all right. Well, thank you, Pete, for stopping by, and we appreciate you all so much for tuning in. And we will be right back here tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
From breaking news to heartwarming stories, the Telegram is your ticket to the latest buzz in town.
Read your daily dose of local headlines, sports, and entertainment and more in hand and on paper.
Get a print and digital subscription for only $7.95 per month. Delivered fresh every Wednesday and Saturday.
Visit thetelegramnews.com or call 740-286-3023 today.
Don't just read the news, be a part of it.